You're watching Taste the Victory.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are joined by largely agreed upon one of the best purple players in North America. He got top 8 with purple a couple of sets ago, and now he is back with the top 64 with mill control. So, Tesero, this is pretty unique because it's set control, but you have a little mill package here as an option for certain matchups. How did you come up with that? Why the mill package, and how did that affect deck building?
The mill package is something I always wanted to include in decks because I always milling people out with Creepymon in my previous lists. So I wanted to figure out a way to use the new Guilmon cards to mill people out. I tried before in their own deck, a sort of combo deck, but it was generally too slow. The current meta is just too aggressive, and I figured the only way I was going to pull this off is to make games last long enough to the point where people's decks actually got short enough for me to pull it off. So I put it in a sort of set control type of package, and I figured I put it in a sort of Venusmon Ophanimon type of package, the one that running Gato and Angewomon for the search for the for just evolving up into him, because I think Venusmon's really strong in this meta. It almost single-handedly counters Melga, not entirely, but it makes Melga players heads hurt when you go into Venusmon. So I wanted to use. And it works pretty well since you're evolving to fit in the mill cards, the mill Guilmon cards that I have, because I get to run the purple rookies for it. So they have and that's how I came about with this list.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense, especially into this current meta where we saw a bunch of Melga just this weekend, and Venus makes their life completely miserable, I know from experience. Yeah, that's awesome. So do you want to go ahead and walk us through the card by card, and then we could talk about your matchups this weekend after?
Sure thing. Going by card, first we'll start with the eggs. 5 eggs, because this is a control deck and you are going to last long enough to need all 5 eggs, especially since you want to have at least one rookie in the waitings for the mill win condition. Right, you want either Guilmon or Gazimon in there, and I really like the rookies we're running 4 Gazi, 1 Psych, and then the 3 Guilmon. Honestly, you can probably cut down 1 Guilmon into another Psych because Guilmon is a 1 cost to evolve, but the 1 cost evolve for Guilmon hasn't really felt too terrible for me. The Guilmon's other effect of deleting 3 KDPs have actually come up quite a bit in popping people's random searcher rookies or their floodgates, keeping me up in tempo that way. And having another red to activate my red option is also really nice. But Gazimon has also been a huge all-star, shutting down a lot of decks. It was really helpful against the Bloomlord matchup because they try to gain memory a lot, and it also turns off Bloomlord's unsuspend effect. The Psychemon didn't come up a lot because no one was playing Digicross decks, at least in my matchups. I didn't see any crosses nearly dead because of the ban list, and I didn't see Blue Flare in this event for some reason. But it's really nice against DeathX, which is why I kept it in there, so I can build a big board and then turn off DeathX off my opponent. Next in line I have my Tamers, 2 TK and 2 Kari. TK is really nice because sometimes the conceit of the deck is the mill combo, which relies a lot on one-ofs, and it's nice to be able to pull out the ones that got stuck in security. Also, TK is also just really nice in control decks in general, just to know what's inside your security, so you know how to play around your own security. And Tai and Kari is quickly becoming one of my favorite Tamers. Super easy to turn on the extra memory gain, which really helps you to maintain your tempo. If you get it to the point where you start your turns at 5, you can easily chaos degrade and not feel super terrible about it and such. So that's really nice. We got the 4 Gatos, of course. We aren't digi-evolving, but searching 3 for pieces and the ability to evolve into Angewomon for only 1 is super strong. And of course, we're running the 4 Angewomons to go with that. Security attack +1 comes up a lot. It's part of what makes this deck actually kind of work, in my opinion, because just controlling your opponent's aggro games isn't enough to win. You gotta close the game out in a quick fashion, otherwise they're gonna rebuild. And Sec +1 on Angewomon, putting it on a Venus or an Ophani, really good, especially comboed with the Tamer, because the Tamer takes away the DP of their security Digimon, so you're effectively swinging 2 checks for 14 or 16k with your Venus or Ophani. So that's really nice. And of course we have Angewomon X for extra healing. Typically in a sort of Venus Ophani Gatomon list, you would see probably 4 of these, but I have to cut some down to fit the mill package and to fit some extra attacks. MagnaAngemon, and Maycrackmon are here for as Hellscythe targets. MagnaAngemon needs no real explanation. It's an extra heal. And Maycrack is really nice because combined with Hellscythe, you can minus 9k something, so they can get rid of troublesome little 5s that way, like Garu. And you can also clear wide boards. I found it nice against Bloomlord decks because they drop a lot of 3ks. And it's also an extra purple for my Creepymon, which can come up as another alternative way to get into the mill win condition. And I think mill win condition works really nice for control decks like this because sometimes your opponent really stops you from like getting aggressive. Like maybe you're up against the control mirror or any other deck where just attacking them for game isn't really an option, and being able to pivot to an alternate win condition is really nice in a deck like this, I think. Moving on to the options, we have, of course, 6 bombs. We got 6 large removal bombs. We got 2 Wyvern's Breath and 4 Chaos Degrade. Pretty standard stuff. I might have played Lunky Adixcato, the Achillesmon option in place of it, but I don't have any. And I think Wyvern's Breath is serviceable enough in the current meta. Like, sure, we have like Jesmon and Grandis that don't entirely die to it, but I think that's fine. It deals with more than enough issues. It's just an extra, just to bump up the biggest security numbers. And of course the 4 Flame Hellscythe, like you would typically see in a list like this, minus 6k things. You can pop small bodies, you can pull out your package of guys that you'd want to get out of it. Gato, Angewomon, Maycrack, MagnaAngie, really good stuff. 2 Crimson Blaze. It's just like I'm playing red package. I'm playing Guilmons and Karis, and I figured I'd make use of it. This came up quite a bit, like against Jesmon, just shuts down their play for a turn. And there's another way to like clear wide bodies, like against Bloomlord. So it came up against Bloomlord as well. Of course, 2 DeathX is another way to go to clear wide bodies. DeathX is really powerful. Everyone's complaining about it. I think there's no really need to explain it too much. We have the 1 Calling, again, broken card, limited to 1 for a reason. You recycle a lot of your things. Trigger on deletions on Ophanimon. That one's pretty obvious as well. And we have 2 Memory Boosts. Memory Boost I feel like was important because the mill combo requires you to have at least some memory because you're wanting to evolve into Growlmon and War Growlmon without passing turn at the very least. And maybe you even want to evolve into Creepymon without passing turn. He needs a lot of memory to do that. So we have purple memory boosts and we have reinforcing memory boosts. Just the one-ofs. And then we can get into like the real spicy part of the deck. The mill package. Takato, Growlmon, War Growlmon, Creepymon. So, of course, the combo starts is that you start at like 5, or you try to start at 5, right? TK guarantees you start at 3, and then either the red yellow tamer or one of the memboosts can get you to 5 pretty easily. So you can pull up a Guilmon, evolve into Growlmon for 2, Growlmon triggers, and they mill 2 cards, or deletes a 3k, right? So sometimes you have to get rid of 3ks to do the mill, but sometimes you don't because you can like get rid of their mem blocker or something doing this. Then for 3 you go into War Growlmon, which mills 3 more. His effect plays out the Guilmon. This also triggers Takato, which gives Blitz to the entire stack, which means that it maintains the Blitz effect, the Win a Digivolving Blitz effect, when you then evolve into Creepymon, who can swing, trigger Growlmon to delete the Guilmon, which mills 2 more cards, and then the Creepymon will mill like 6 to 9 extra cards. Doing it all together, you usually mill either 16 or like 13 cards with this full combo if you get everything in place.
That's
Which usually requires like 30 cards in trash, so you have to like make sure your trash count is works out. Sometimes you might be stuck at 29 because you have too much stuff on the board or in your hand, so watch for that. But like if you do everything perfectly, 16 mil in 1 turn and 1 big burst, which is really strong and has won me the security control mirror definitely in this tournament. It's what I built the deck to do. It's really cool.
That is so sick. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. After this tournament, would you ever consider upping the Growl and War Growl numbers, or is there no space?
I considered it. I think in like a previous draft of this build, I was running 2 Growlmons, and I eventually dropped them for like the second DeathX because I was only running 1 at the time. I feel like 1 is enough because generally you're just waiting and saving this stuff for the end of the game, right? Sometimes I felt like I wanted to see them more often. There were like moments where the game was getting pretty close. I wasn't going to kill my opponent that turn, but their deck count was low enough that if I did like top deck Groundmon or Groundmon, I would win on the spot. And I didn't see them because they're one-ofs. So sometimes I felt like I wanted to see them more often, but more often than not, because this is a control deck, more often than not, you want to see the cards that control the opponent because you want to be able to like actually survive in this extremely, extremely aggressive meta. So cutting things like Hellscythe or Chaos Degrades or like Death X's feels really bad in testing because you really, really want to be seeing those more often than the mill stuff when you're not in like the mill turn, which happens like pretty rarely to be fair.
Yeah, okay, that makes total sense. Yeah, thank you for walking us through that for sure. Okay, so would you be able to walk us through your matchups this weekend then and a brief summary of how they felt?
Sure. My first round was a free round because my opponent had to be called into work, so, well, can't say much about that one. Got lucky there. But my first real round, round 2, was against Bloom, which I won 1-0, funnily enough, because game 1, I just outlasted them. I just removed their bodies, and they couldn't kill me before they just ran out of cards and milled without me even using the mill cards all too much. It was one of those games where if I did like see the mill cards just slightly earlier, probably would have won like a turn earlier or something. But like I still managed to win just off the back of control. And then game 2, we just lasted too long that the time ran out, and then I won 1-0 basically, which is funny. Yeah, Bloom is pretty doable with this because of all of your removal. They hit something bad in security like Crimson Blaze or Hellscythe, and then suddenly their Bloom Lord is dealing less checks. Then you slowly get rid of all their Blooms and Hydras, and then they're suddenly finding like they can't combo into a win anymore because they run out of resources. Round 2 is against Melga. That one was a play Venus, win the game sort of scenario. But yeah, it's just Melga is just. I wish I saw Melga a bit more, so I can even further validate that Venus sort of wins this matchup. I think smarter players can play around Venus. It's a little rough for them because they're doing 1 check at a time instead of 2 checks at a time at that point if they're playing around it, and then they lose to security bombs a bit harder that way. But other than that, you go into Venus and you just sort of win. After that was Armors. That one I 2-0'd as well. That one went pretty similar to the Melga game where I went into Venus and it turned off their effects and they didn't know how Venus worked. There's a lot of like abusing Hellscythe and controlling. I think during game 1 of that, I got down to 0 security and then managed to crawl my way back up using all of my heal and control effects and got back into the game that way. It was Melga and Armors are also the kind of like fast action games where using Angewomon to be aggressive is like super, super nice. To get that 2 checks in and actually like pressure your opponent back at them. And then we have round after that, round 5. Yeah, round 5 was against Security Control. And that was the one where I actually got to do the mill combo because, of course, and against Security Control, it's a long game of both of you just throwing removal at each other and actually just a lot of passing because both of you just don't have plays. And then, it lasts long enough that you can find all of the pieces of the combo, even though they're all one-ofs, dig them out with TK. And then it's just sort of inevitable at that point that you put everything together, combo off, mill them for the rest of their deck, and then win. Just how it is. After that, the next matchup was Imperial, which was my first loss of that event. Really good Imperial player. Really nice guy too. Friended me later, wanted to know more about my deck. And he also was the guy that got 7th, so good on him for that. Imperial was pretty rough. My security just didn't shake up that well. He got his combos off, he was swinging. I wasn't seeing that much removal inside my security those games, and it's kind of hard to deal with Imperial sometimes. The fact that Denobi and Pyildra are 8k means they don't die to Hellscythe. The fact that they're jamming, that means they don't die to any of my big DP security, and it just didn't work out well for me. And Megadeth doesn't help things either. Megadeth really fucks with like Ophanimon, and even can sometimes fuck with like DeathX and Venus, just removing them super efficiently and making it so it's super tempo on their end. Like they have more than enough memory to like handle it because they'll be playing several Davis Kens, because you're playing a slow deck like this. They can play Davis and Ken all day and just like set up for their big turns all the time. Yeah, it's a bit rough. But it was probably very doable just if my Secudo was just a little bit more luckier. If I just needed to sack him just a bit more, right? Then round 7 was against Jesmon. This was a tie because we took too long for both games 1 and 2. Game 1, I just he hit Degrade in security and then I went from there. Game 2, he hit nothing in security and I couldn't come back. Game 3, we got really close to finishing the game. I had a whiteboard big enough to he was bricking pretty hard and I had a whiteboard big enough to try to aggro him down. He had a savior that he attacked into my security and died to an Angewomon X, funnily enough, which should tempoed be into the game. But time went to overtime, and on my second turn in overtime, I just barely didn't have enough aggression. If I had attacked the turn before, I probably would have killed him, but we didn't, so we tied. And it's just how it shook up. We just took too long. Definitely a game I could have won if on game 3 I was a bit more aggressive. I didn't. Oh well, mistakes happen like that. And then the final round was against Armors. This Armor player was playing a lot more Awakening of the Golden Knight, and Awakening of the Golden Knight really messed with a lot of my game plan because it turns off Hellscythe, DP minusing. Again, just like with the Imperial player, I'd had a lot of moments where my security just wasn't shaking out for me. He was getting super aggressive against me and like just not hitting anything that mattered. And then of course Megadeth keeps like out-tempoing me anytime I wanted to go into Falldown mode on Ophanimon to like try to heal and keep myself into the game. So that's how that panned out. But you know, Armors aren't like the most prevalent deck in the meta, I think, and neither are Imperial. So I feel like I just sort of, you know, ran into the matchups that I just didn't pan out for me, unfortunately. And I think this deck otherwise does fairly well in most, you know, all things considered. You know, you got the security control package here to help you with like really aggressive decks like OTK decks like Melga and Grandis, and then you have the mill package that helps you win really long grindy games by turning yourself into an alternate win con. And that's about it of what I have to say about my deck.
Okay, that's awesome. It was very in-depth. Thank you so much for giving us that walkthrough. It's pretty cool. I really do like the small package to have that option to pivot to. Any thing else? Any closing thoughts?
Shout outs to Sack, who was basically my training partner.
All right, well, thank you so much again, Tesero. Hope to see you again on the channel soon with another top. And until then, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.